of making paper from papyrus was lost until about 30 years ago, when Dr. Hassan Regad started this papyrus plantation and rediscovered the art after many years of research. Osiris, the god of resurrection and lord of eternity, was usually This scene shows the discovery of the child Moses, whose mother had put him in a basket and floated it on the Nile. Enjoying the fresh air in their garden pavilion. They are playing a game called Senet, a game for 2 players, a form of which is still played in Egypt today. Ploughing is the first operation in preparing the land for cultivation. And here we see the ploughman with his 2 pigeons for food, and they were used for carrying messages, especially for the army. The fields are irrigated by means of the shadoof, which works like a balance, with a bucket at one end of a long pole, taken to be stored in the silos. The scribe makes a careful record. Boat of this type can be seen in the museum beside the Great Pyramid of King Cheops at Giza, storage and as cages for small animals and birds. The Egyptians today still use the various parts of the palm tree for the to frighten the fish into the net. Let's see if he industries and crafts, the first of which is brick making. The material used is the Nile mud, which is mixed with water and chopped straw into a thick paste. This paste is put into a wooden mould, and the bricks are then simply left, which acted as insulation against heat, wind and rain. Formed around the core, as glass blowing was not invented until the 1st century BC. In Ptolemaic times, Alexandria became a centre of glass craftsmanship, and in the Roman period, fine cameos were produced in the same city. The body was then cleaned and embalmed and wrapped in several layers of linen bandages. Amulets were put between the bandages to protect the mummy from harm. The whole process took 70 days, which helps the finished pot to dry evenly without cracking. The potter forms the pot with his fingers as he kicks the wheel round with his foot. The handles are added afterwards, and the pot is dried in the sun for a while before being fired. Now for a little Egyptian magic. With a piece of hard stone. Grid lines are marked in red on the prepared surface to ensure accurate enlargements of the original drawings. The artist copies the outline onto the wall, working from the sketch made by the chief artist on a small slab of stone or a piece of papyrus. Then the sculptor carves the design in relief with his mallet and chisel. Finally, the details would be painted in colour to make the picture look as realistic as possible. Statues were partially carved in the quarry where the stone for them was cut. First of all, the block of stone is separated from the rock face by hammering wooden wedges into holes cut in the rock. The wedges are inside, and then the sculptor carves out the figure, rounding it off first on the front and then on the back. Weapons included bows and arrows, swords, battle axes and spears, as well as shields and throw sticks. The horse Linen made from the flax plant was used by the Egyptians for clothing and many other purposes. Bundles of flax stalks are pulled through a large wooden comb to remove the tops and leaves. The stalks are soaked in water for a few days to soften them and then beaten with a wooden mallet. They are then pulled through a smaller comb to separate the fibers from the outer woody covering, and the good fibers are picked out and spun into thread on a spindle. The fibre is then hammered with a wooden mallet to cause the fibers of the two layers to stick together. The sheet is then covered with another piece of cloth and pressed between two heavy stones for several days. During that time it also... Good wine was appreciated in Pharaonic times, and this scene shows the method of winemaking. Bunches of ripe grapes are taken to the vat where the grapes are trodden out, and the juice extracted is poured into large pottery jars to ferment. When this process is complete, the jars are sealed with a clay seal, which is stamped with the date and the name of the vineyard where the grapes were grown.